Hi, folks. My name is Jerry Potts. I'm representing the Dale at Dale Coalition, and you'll see from the title here, it don't mean a thing if you don't use that swing space. And in particular, we're going to show you why that decision not to use additional swing space, which we've suggested, and really the entire process, some of the core assumptions here, gave us a ad reno option and a new construction option for Dale Street that were seriously flawed. So what we'd like to do is kind of take you through the thinking here. And the two assumptions that I've heard a lot, and they're used in this proposal, is there's no swing space in town. This is a fatally flawed assumption, and it has major implications on the costs and the designs that we saw. First of all, it increased costs, it increased construction time, it sacrificed the baseball and open field, and it also increased the disruption for the students because it assumed that the students would stay on site. So we're going to talk about that in depth. I'm going to use information from the PSR, and we'll get into this in a little more detail. The second one that I've heard is the Dale Street site is too small and it can't meet the educational requirements. And this is simply not factual. The actual Elm Street school that's being proposed is only 4 acres. The Dale Street campus is 17 acres. Number two, I'm going to actually show you the E1 design, and I'm going to place it where we think it should be, which is where the current Dale Street building is. And you'll see that it easily fits into the 98,000 square feet. And we'll show you that design. Finally, the PSR, it states clearly that the Dale building option fully meets the educational programming. It is simply a myth that a building at Dale Street cannot meet fully the educational design that we need for our students. So let's get into it quickly. Just some setting, I'm going to throw some buzzwords. I'm going to try to move fast in about 20 minutes. We were presented a year ago for the grade 4 and 5, 3 options that were considered. B1 was an add renovation at Dale Street, keeping some of the existing building. E1 was new construction, and I put that in parentheses because they actually kept the existing Dale Street building and then added into the middle field, which we think was a mistake. And then G1, the new construction at Elm. And all of the information I'm going to show you here, unless it's otherwise noted, is coming from the PSR. I've put the link in here. I'm taking screenshots from it. So not information I'm making up, just questions and information that we're presenting. Perhaps maybe the first time you've seen them. So I'll do my best to try to get through them and not scare you away. Although I'm going to show you a scary slide right out of the gates. Boom. This is page 94 and 95. This is 94. This is 95 of the PSR. This is what we filed with MSBA. The red are points that I'm going to make that go away if you decide to use swing space. You don't keep the students on site. And then I pointed out in blue a couple of important items to just keep in mind on this site selection. So let's get into it. The issue that we have with this E1, this core assumption, is it assumes no swing space. The students actually remain on site. This creates some major problems with this. And honestly, if I was seeing this and it was presented to me as a potential Dale Street parent, I wouldn't support this option either. So that's what we've been saying for over a year. We're seeing an option that is inferior, and it gets into these 4 bullets. First of all, it increased the cost. It's $700,000 more because of phasing. You'll come over here and see the estimated construction length is 24 months. There's $700,000 that's factored in moving the students during the construction site and having to phase the construction. It delays it. Number two, it forces the building on and then in fact taking the open field, which is a baseball field. That baseball field was actually paid for by Medfield Youth Baseball and Softball, and I was actually president of MYBS during that time. So we built the dugouts, we redid the field, we cleared the brush to the left. That site for that field is important. It was paid for by MYBS. We want to retain it, and we don't see any reason that it needs to be removed. As I mentioned, it also extends the construction timetable, and then it also creates a significant disruption to the students. So what we've requested is give the town a Dale Street new construction option that actually removes the Dale Street school. If you're concerned about historic preservation, we'll show the ad renovation next. But if it's a new construction, show it clean and show it in the best location to minimize disruption and maximize the amount of money we're spending and the value we get. So first of all, remove the old Dale Street. Secondly, use Blake and Wheelock as swing space. Specifically, you need far fewer modulars by doing it. It would allow you to share common areas, the gym, the cafeteria, the auditorium, and library. So you don't need modulars for those. It's much less disruptive for the students because they are off of a construction site. They're nowhere near it. And it significantly lowers the cost. So when you look at these red arrows, those all disappear if you decide to move and use the excess capacity. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. So why did we decide to build this on the open field? Well, that's because in the OPM interview from April of 2019, we specifically said option one was renovate current building and build behind Dale Street on the baseball fields. So we asked from the very first meetings we had with the OPMs, and when we were evaluating them to give us an option where they build on that field. As I noted, don't really need to do that. We also have repeatedly said that we are under capacity, and Superintendent Marsden gave a presentation at the public forum. I still don't understand what he was saying because it didn't address anything and we had no opportunity to actually ask questions or reframe it to what the case we were actually making. What we are saying is that the site location, keeping the students on at Dale Street during construction, is an untenable option. Too costly, too disruptive. So use Blake and use the Wheelock School to be able to use modulars there as needed and use the shared common space. And contrary to what you heard on Superintendent Marsden's presentation, we are 600 students under our capacity from 2005. But you don't have to take my word from it. Here is 2016, which shows none of our schools are above average. They're average, and actually two of them, the senior high and Blake, are both considered to be under capacity for the square footage and the amount of space that it has. So what we're saying is, instead of driving costs up, use this excess capacity for our students and to give them a better experience. Now, I'm going to show you in a second, it actually has some major side benefits to it. So let's kind of get into the new construction option if you in fact use the swing space. So here is the E1 design, and you'll notice this specifically, just to put it in context, this is the Memorial School. You'll see over here to the right the existing Dale Street School. The red ghosted line is the part of the building that would be removed in this scenario. And you'll see the new 98,000 square foot here is in the middle with the colorful blocks. Okay. This assumes, again, students are on site. What I want to do, though, is I want to look at the existing site. Here's the Dale Street School. Here's Memorial, right? Here's the parking. And what I want to do is I want to lift this. I'm not changing this scale of this in any way, shape, or form. And I want to drop it where we think it should have been built. Here, where the current Dale Street School is. So you'll see the 98,000, and I'm not good enough to cut off these sections, but here is the building outline. You'll notice that there is a full area here for a playground, right? We don't lose a playground. Parking spaces, car queue, all of that information is still, all of that location is still here. And you'll notice there's a nice buffer space in the front. It is right on Adams Street here, but you'll notice again that there's green space here. Most importantly, look what we still have, the open field. It doesn't in any way encroach. This is 98,000 square feet, and ladies and gentlemen, it fits. So the E1 new construction fits. You keep the playground, you keep the open space, you don't need to do phasing, and here is what I teased earlier. Students would actually leave the Dale Street classrooms 20 months earlier using this approach. So day one construction starts, we would expect that the students would be in nice modern modulars and using common space that is actually significantly better than Dale Street. We have heard repeatedly that the current Dale Street is dilapidated. There's $400,000 in maintenance that's needed. There was just a leak in the roof. Keeping students there for 3 years until we build at Wheelock makes no sense. In this option, we actually remove the students 20 months earlier and get them into better facilities faster. So quickly, here was from the PSR. This was what was listed as advantages and disadvantages. I added the stars here, so new construction can fully meet educational program, contrary to what you've heard. Consolidates pickup and drop off with Memorial School, so it helps us with busing. It does not preserve the community building. That's the add reno option, so we eliminate that. But when you look at all the disadvantages here, and take a second or hit pause to look at them, those all go away when you use swing space. Okay, I'm not going to get into these. I've already covered it. But basically all of these except a continuity of grades, and I think this excess capacity, but again, we're 600 under, so I don't know what that is. But all these other ones go away when you use this swing space. Okay, and in fact, here creates potential liability. You actually take a liability and you use MSBA money to make it into a valuable building. And guess what? It costs $5 million less, which I'll show you in just a couple of slides. For the ad reno option, we're assuming the same thing. If you use swing space, it increased cost by 1.1 million. That's the phasing we discussed. There's about $1 million factored in for modulars. You lose the field, you extend the construction timetable by over a year. So you'll notice over here in red, 30 to 36 months. But all these other reds go away when you use the swing space at Blake, and we've already discussed it. So we're asking, give us an ad reno option that uses the swing space at Wheelock and Blake for all the reasons we discussed before. And then in addition to that, we seriously question this 115,000 square feet. It doesn't make any sense. I was told at the public forum that the additional 16,000 square feet was because of the basement, but the basement is only 10,000 square feet. So that leaves 6,000 additional square feet. And by the way, I don't know why the 10,000 would be buildable. So I'm not sure why it's included in the construction costs, because they're not going to do anything with it other than putting concrete slab and new fire protection. So when you look at this, the new construction option they have is 78,000 plus the 26,000 of usable existing space. That puts you well over, by 6,000, what's needed, 6,000 square feet. It adds 2.3 million in cost. And frankly, I still don't understand the 115, why we're comparing 115,000 square feet versus 98,000 square feet. So I think we need to relook at that. I think the design option that was presented here is inferior. And I think when you use the swing space, you have more ability to actually do a great ad renovation, which I would challenge the SBC to give us. Give us the best ad renovation option for the town. Okay. I'm going to go through these quickly because I've looked at them and I've shown these before in a previous video that I did, but I want to look at the 11 million that I've raised as the cost. Here is the site work for G1 at 9.8 million. Okay. If you take this through, it's made up of 5.7 in site work that's needed, 2.1 million that is in, Wheelock improvements, 1.5 million that's the water pipe and traffic improvements. And then I'm going to jump to the next slide, which was part of the community forum last October, sort of the a la carte menu of other expenses. So if I take the 9.8 million, we get to 11 million because I am taking the minimum amount that we could spend to just mothball Dale Street. So the minimum cost that we could spend is 1.4 million. So if you add that, you're over 11 million in the site work. In addition to that, you aren't factoring in any field replacement. And the current Elm Street proposal is no longer field neutral, but there is one field that needs to be built. And that costs, I think this was for two expensive fields. You're going to be somewhere in the 700,000 to 800,000 range for a new field. But you also are down one field. You are no longer field neutral. So bottom line here is the minimum price tag, if you're going to include the Dale Street costs, I don't know why you just include mothballing. If you decide that you're actually going to do something with Park and Rec, the cost is going to be somewhere between 8 to 10 million and 20 million. And I don't know which number it's going to end up being, but that still will leave the rest of Dale Street that would have to get mothballed. And so I think you're realistically looking at anywhere from an additional 2 million to 20 million that has to be factored in, when you're looking at the Elm Street location. I've also, as I talked about earlier, I've called out the phasing costs that go away with the proposal that we're using as far as swing space. So that's the 1.1, that's the 700,000 for the new construction. And then you don't need to spend anything to replace the field because the design we've shown actually keeps the field. So when you go through all of this, here's the bottom line. Here's the B1 option. Even with the 2.1 million for phasing, the 2.3 million in higher costs that are related to this higher that is the building. It's basically comparable after MSBA reimbursement. However, I don't think it does not include the Dale Street costs and field replacement. So I think this number goes up to about 62 million at a minimum. And I think you can reduce this by about 4 million given what I've outlined before. So this drops it to about a 54, 55 million. So you've got about a $7 million difference here. Here in E1, it's already cheaper. But if you remove the 700,000 in phasing, the new construction option is a cheaper option. So both of these options, Ad Reno, E1, are cheaper than new construction and less disruptive to the town overall. So just quickly, hit pause on this. I'm not going to explain each of these, but on page 203 of the PSR, here's a listing of the cons. Hit pause, read them. We're giving you what they've said. We're giving you our opinion on why these are in fact erroneous, especially in using the swing space. But the bottom line to it is that when you don't use the swing space, you are clearly showing two Dale options that are less attractive. So what are we asking? We're asking for an extension with the MSBA now. We are in the feasibility, scope, and budget agreement phase. I did a public records request with MSBA to specifically ask them if they have ever rejected a district who's asked for an extension during this period, and the answer is never. So we believe that now is the time. We don't want a failed vote in November. We don't want to go back to the drawing board on this. We believe, however, that in order to do that, bullet point 2, we've got to have a serious and open dialogue to get the best true dialogue with the Dale Coalition to ensure that we have the two best Dale options presented to the town, because we seriously believe the two are significantly flawed. Number 3, we are currently paying consultants, and those consultants are not working on the buildings anymore. They're actually working to market the Wheelock site. And so there are 4 consultants who meet weekly, and they're doing work in between to try to get this yes vote passed, because that's what they're doing. We would rather have them actually working on the 2 Dale Street options we've requested for over a year, but no work has been done on those. So we thought after the May town meeting we might get some movement on that, but we got a public forum that just resold us on the same things that were presented last September. We would like all costs when comparing these options. We believe that the Dale Street mothballing costs or the park and rec have to be factored in so that the town knows the full consequences of what the decision is. And then finally, work to build consensus. I've never seen a project like this that's so important, that's $82 million, that's going to impact the town for 50 years, that has been forced to be so divisive. We want a new school. The majority of people, vast majority, want a new school. And if you start with that and then work through, that's a much better way to do it than to dictate a site that is clearly unpopular. Whether it's a majority, who knows? But you can see from both the town vote, the survey that was done, the signs that are around town, there is significant opposition to this site. And it's a shame, because we should be working on how we get a school. So that's what we're asking for. Hopefully this video helped a little bit. The social media posts and everything else, you can disagree with the conclusions on this, but you can't disagree on the facts. The facts are what we presented. They're from the PSR. So I hope this is giving you some indication of why we've been so frustrated over the past year, because we've been asking for over a year to revisit these assumptions and continually have been pushed off. So let's change that. Let's work together to get a school building built. Let's go SBC. Let's step up, get the extension, work with us to get a building built.